I ranked every cookie in Error Buster Season 1. Well, except for some that are obviously bad like Ginger Brave. In this game mode, it's important to choose the right cookies, so I made a tier list to help you decide. The top tier is the best cookies. These are the ones that help you get the highest score possible. The second tier is for cookies who are good in general. Third tier is for viable cookies. Fourth tier is for mid cookies. And the bottom tier is for garbage cookies, including everyone I don't mention in this video. I tried to make this tier list as accurate as possible, so I got a ton of people to help me make this. For example, this guy named Warlord, he helped me start the tier list. Basically, this tier list is not just my opinion. If you disagree with anything in the tier list, join my Discord and help me make a tier list for season 2 when it comes. Who should we start off with? Maybe a Sea Farty. She belongs in the garbage tier. Oh, dang it. It's time to clear up a common misconception. Just because a cookie has a high rarity doesn't mean it's good. Capri Sun, garbage. Pitaya, garbage. Black Pearl, garbage. Compared to other cookies, their damage sucks. Okay, so Black Pearl is not actually garbage. I was misinformed. I'll fix it at the end of the video. However, the top 2 cookies are epic. Rebel and Creme Brulee. The whole tier list is all about those 2. These guys are mandatory to get the highest score possible. At the end of the run, you have to fight this Cake-Hound boss with infinite health. The more damage you do to it, the more score you get. After a while, the Cake-Hound gets enraged. Their attack speed increases and they deal massive damage. Then it kills all your cookies, ending the run too early. Ideally, you want to survive as long as possible. If not, then you lose a ton of points. Rebel summons are the only way to hit the 10-minute time limit. Therefore, he's the number 1 best Error Buster cookie. Creme Brulee second place for the best cookie. He deals the most damage out of everyone. That's all. Now it's time to make a bunch of you angry. 8 extremely overrated cookies. Let's start with Fettuccine, the best of the overrated cookies. She definitely does not belong in the best tier, only the good tier. In this game mode, DPS matters way more than survivability. It's not that hard to get to the final boss. Fettuccine's good, but not necessary. She is a little useful against the final boss though. After she dies, she gives an attack speed debuff to the Cake-Hound. She also becomes immortal for a little bit, which is nice. If you don't have Rebel, she is a great pick, but that's pretty much it. I think she's a little too high still, but that's just me. The next overrated cookie is Rye. She belongs in the garbage tier. In this game mode, magic candies don't exist. So why? Why do people like using her? Her weapon of choice is a water squirt gun. She hits like a wet noodle. Even with lots of range cookie buffs, she still sucks. So much misinformation. Her damage is bad, plain and simple. The next cookie's pure vanilla, and oh boy is he overrated. All he does is give you shields and heal you. No damage buffs, no debuffs, no nothing. He belongs in the viable tier. He does keep your cookies alive, but I'd rather have a healer that buffs Brulee, or a healer that debuffs a boss. The next overrated cookies are Elderberry and Crimson Coral. First of all, survivability is not that important. Next, they don't help your DPS increase that much. They're also frontliners, and frontliners have an issue. During the final boss, Rebel uses his summons to protect your team, but his summons don't protect front cookies that well, so they die. They're both going in the mid tier, but they're not terrible. They're basically worse versions of Fettuccine. Next, we have Burnt Cheese. He only buffs the damage of earth cookies, and that's it. He doesn't boost the damage of any of the top tier cookies, so that's pretty bad. He belongs in the mid tier. Our last overrated cookies are White Lily and Golden Cheese. They're just average DPS cookies, that's it. They go in the viable tier, not the top tier, not the good tier. They're not overpowered, they're just okay. Now it's time to complete the garbage tier. There we go, we're already done. There's way too many garbage cookies to talk about, but basically they all suck. Now it's time to make even more of you angry. 5 extremely underrated cookies. Number 1, Pancake, who goes in the good tier. I bet you never saw that one coming. In this game mode, increasing Creme Brulee's damage is all that matters. Creme Brulee does so much damage that the other DPS cookies suck compared to him, so increasing his damage is extremely important. I bet you never knew about this, but Pancake increases your attack speed by 20%. Buffing your attack speed is one of the best ways to increase Creme Brulee's damage, so that's why Pancake belongs in the good tier. There is someone who completely outclasses Pancake, and it's Mint. He gives a 40% attack speed boost and heals instead of just 20%, so he belongs in the best tier. However, there's something even better than a 40% attack speed boost. Eclair's weakness debuffs is much stronger. Eclair's extremely underrated and definitely goes in the best tier. If you're using Rebel, the final boss fight's gonna last a really long time. Eclair has enough time to give the boss boss 4 weakness stacks. Therefore, you get a 100% damage boost. That's OP. Another underrated cookie you never saw coming is Snow Sugar. Snow Sugar is a bit of an odd one. Before the final boss, they're complete garbage, but during the final boss, they're really good. Let's say your rebel doesn't have enough cooldown to tank the boss. Without enough cooldown, you die. However, Snow Sugar decreases the attack speed of the boss. This makes it a lot harder for the boss to kill your rebel summons. Snow Sugar has the potential to save a bad run. They have a bunch of flaws though, so they go into good tier. The final underrated cookie is Street Urchin, but she's only going in the viable tier. She's quite similar to White Lily and Golden Cheese. Surprisingly, she does a lot of damage. However, sometimes she struggles against bosses, so she's not that good. Now, let's talk about a huge issue here, frontliners. Usually, frontliners are good, but this time they're actually pretty bad. This is all Rebel's fault. In the final boss fight, Rebel summons can't protect frontline cookies. Rebel himself can survive though, so he's the only frontline cookie in the top tier. Queen of Man and Space Donut are really good, but they got knocked down a tier because they're frontliners. That's why they're in the good tier instead of the top tier. As for all the other frontliners, they're all really mediocre. Unawakened Dark Cacao's going in the viable tier, not because he's good, only because of his debuffs. Financier and Molotov also go in the viable tier, not because they're good, they just buff Creme Brulee. We also have T-Knight in the viable tier. He definitely sucks a lot, but his skill does actually boost attack and crit, which is good for Creme Brulee. Yes, his skill does give you a damage boost. Next is Butter Roll. He belongs in the mid tier. He decreases a Cake Hound's attack speed, but he's a front, so he dies anyways. He's the best of all the mid tier cookies. Mercurial Knight goes in the mid tier. He might do some damage, but otherwise, yeah. Finally, we have Pinecone. Honestly, I think he's garbage tier, but oh well. This tier list is not just my opinion, so he goes at the bottom of the mid tier. Before we move on, let's slap in some more bad cookies. Mango, Cherry Blossom, and Sparkling are really bad. All they do is buff Creme Brulee, and that's it, which automatically puts them in the viable tier. They're also not frontline cookies, which is good. Let's rank all the DPS cookies now. Every single one of them's outclassed by Creme Brulee, so yeah. The best one's Captain Caviar, the super epic. Wait, he's not a super epic? Even though Clotted Cream and Oyster are? Wow. Captain Caviar has a nice defense down debuff, so he goes in the good tier. He also does some alright damage. Stardust also goes in the good tier. His debuff does work against a Cake Hound. I guess Blackberry is more of a support, but she still belongs in the good tier. She gives both attack speed buffs and crit buffs. Next we have Mozzarella and Clotted Fish. Their crowd control attacks don't work on the final boss, but they do work against the 3 bosses before that. They could help you salvage a bad run, otherwise their damage is bad, mid tier. Next is Pumpkin Pie. She's kind of a DPS, but not really. Her summon is alright I guess, but a little overrated. She belongs in the mid tier. Let's put the healers into the tier list now. You only need one healer to survive, but having multiple damage buffing healers is a good strategy. For example, Macaron and Carol. I guess Cotton kinda counts cause she does damage. All 3 of them belong in the viable tier. There are some healers that don't do much, so they're ranked lower. Peach Blossom's kinda similar to Pure Vanilla, so he's going right next to him. Silverbell's okay with Mercurial Knight, but otherwise, yeah. I'll put him right next to Mercurial. Then there's Peppermint, who's straight up awful, mid tier. Alright, you may have noticed that I haven't finished the top row yet. The top row answers a big question. Who are the best Error Buster cookies? There's 7 of them, and we know who 4 of them are. Rebel's 1st place, Creme Brulee 2nd place, Eclair's 4th place, arguably 3rd place, and Mint is 7th place. After I hit 1.9 billion points and didn't record it, and playing this game mode a little too much, I know what the answer is. In 6th place we got Mystic Flower. Wow, who would have guessed? It's not like super obvious or anything. Decreasing the Cake Hound's attack speed by 30% and increasing the damage it takes by 20%. Who would have ever guessed at Mystic Flower's top tier? 5th place is definitely not obvious either. It's not like they're in the thumbnail or anything. Cream Ferret is 5th place. They have stronger attack buffs than Mystic Flower and Mint, so they're 5th. For the 3rd or 4th place cookie, you would have never guessed it. It's Linzer, who does the same thing as Eclair. Not obvious at all. After I finish this video, turns out there's a few things we all missed. There's a lot of adjustments in the garbage tier. Turns out Black Pearl gives a 20% attack speed debuff to the final boss, so she actually belongs in the viable tier. Finally, I'm moving Fettuccine down. It's my opinion, but I'm injecting it into this video. Well, there you have it. I ranked every single Error Buster cookie, except for some of the bad ones of course. Now, you should subscribe, cause I'm poor and I say that every single video.